All right. Hey, it's the first week of November 2021, and our episode today is 50 years old this year. In fact, it'll be 50 years old in a few weeks, I believe. So we're going to talk about a 50-year-old movie, guys.
Oh, woohoo!
You want to know what movie we're going to talk about? Because you guys, this is a surprise to you. I'm telling you now, and you're just going to have to talk about it.
Okay, bring it on.
Hold on, let me get
I sure hope it's Clockwork Orange.
That would be. Yeah. Oh, did you just watch Clockwork Orange?
I did.
Oh well, geez, that's good because that's what I wanted to talk about today. Chuck, did you watch Clockwork Orange too?
I did, as a matter of fact.
Oh man, what the hell?
Hey, I got my glass with some dentures in it, and I sat down and I watched A Clockwork Orange.
Wow.
I drank milk that was full of adrenochrome.
I tried to surprise you guys with a movie that you've never seen before.
Would have been
50 years old, and it didn't work.
What a talk.
You got the adrenochrome? I think I'm going to try the Cinemesque. What about you? Does that mean that Chuck gets the Volicet? Or Delicet?
I think that's what's left over for him. Boy, we are really killing it here in this opening to this episode.
We're killing it. So
like
get your glass of milk, sit down, put your headphones on, and listen to three guys talk about Clockwork Orange. Here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
Yep.
We're killing it. We're doing
They're
it.
ready. They're ready.
Okay,
they're ready. Go.
All right, we can go now.
There's somebody that made this movie that I think he only made this movie. I think it was his debut feature.
And I don't think we've ever heard from him since.
And then it got banned in England, and we've never heard from him since. Someone by the name of Stanley Kubrick.
Kubrick. Kubrick.
He's pretty good director, actually.
He's all right. He's all right.
We like him around these parts.
Yeah, even though this is his only movie he's ever done.
Well, if you were only ever going to make one movie,
this is the one.
This is a good one to have made. You could have said that about a lot of his movies.
Almost every single one of them. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. This happens to be my favorite Kubrick movie. Favorite's tough because this is a tough movie, but
yeah,
I think it is. I think it's Stanley Kubrick at his most Stanley Kubrick.
Interesting. That's interesting. This used to be my favorite, maybe 20 years ago. It's not anymore. And I don't know that I think it's Stanley Kubrick's most Stanley Kubrick. So we'll have to dig into that a little later, I think.
Okay.
But it is. I mean, he's all over this movie. I mean, it's very clearly only one person could have directed this movie. So,
right,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and that man is Rob Zombie. Wait, what? No.
Oh my God! Could you just imagine Rob Zombie's Clockwork Orange? Just shoot me.
We'll get too much backstory on Alex, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
or Dim.
Sure.
No, we get the Dim backstory.
It would show all the Droogs as children and how they all became like psychopathic friends together.
If we knew them all as children, we could understand why they liked milk so much.
Exactly, because and somewhere in there would be way too much Sherry Moon Zombie, but if that's even possible, I guess it's possible. It is possible.
She would probably play Alex's mom.
Probably.
Yes, she would.
Yeah. All right. So so this is based on a book that came out in the early 60s and is
by Burgess Meredith.
Burgess Meredith made it. Yes, Anthony Burgess Meredith. That's a Wheel of Fortune puzzle waiting to happen. The before and after.
Yeah, it is. It totally
is. and I can't wait for me to randomly watch an episode of Wheel of Fortune. It's like, oh my God, it happened. It's Anthony Burgess Meredith. Anyway, so it's actually a well known to be a pretty well adapted movie as far as like it's pretty close to the movie. There are some changes, most interestingly is the final chapter of the book that would have not been known to the United States until well after this movie came out.
Right.
And then it was, and some of the focus of the Ludovico technique is changed. Mostly focusing, Kubrick doing what Kubrick does, focusing on a broken system as opposed to the actual Alex directly. It deals with Alex indirectly, but a broken system in the.
Yeah, Alex is interesting. He's sort of well, not sort of. He is kind of our doorway. He's our narrator. Obviously, he's our eyes, but he's really just kind of a mechanism to talk about a lot of satire, to expose a lot of, corruption, perhaps, to talk about, the role of government and society, and using Alex as a puppet to make a lot of different statements and points about,
it's one of those things where, because this is somewhat dangerous. Alex is begrudgingly a very likable character. He does awful things, but he is incredibly intelligent and he is very witty. And it really kind of, he's also a very reliable narrator. He is not misleading anybody what's going on in this story.
I think what he is charismatic.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important that you see his depravity and his evil I'm trying to find the word, but
overtly.
The fact that, overtly. It's the camera doesn't shy away from it. There's nothing implied. It is like, look at how much of a piece of shit this guy is, right? And it almost dares you to feel sympathy for him later. But it also kind of takes you through the idea of what does rehabilitation mean in any society, right?
Well, how do you the contrast of, we hate criminals, but we don't exactly want to kill them, but we want to make sure that they are always reminded that they are criminals,
right?
And it speaks to a lot of how the good people of the world treat some other people horrifically by nature of the society that they're in. So we've done a lot of talking. Chuck, what do you
I don't know. I was actually enjoying listening to you guys talk about this because this is one of those movies for me that I watched a lot as a kid, and a young adult, and I never really thought about much of what was trying to be said here. It was just, I hesitate to call it entertaining, but it is entertaining. It's wildly violent and ridiculous, but for me, it's fun. A lot of this movie is fun. It's posed in a way like the scenes where Billy Boy and Alex's group fight. The choreography is so outlandish and so fun. You can't help but just be engrossed in that and
it's
kind
like
of
an old
forget
West Bar
about
fight. Yeah.
Yes, and you kind of forget about what you're watching almost a lot of the times with this movie because of the way it's presented. So I took a lot more time today watching it to kind of dive into what it's saying, where I hadn't really done that before, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I can definitely see where you're coming from with that, Chuck, because I do think that when the first few times I saw this movie, I never really processed its themes, but it is a very psychedelic movie in a lot of ways. it is, it has all the hallmarks of a cult film, right? It's dangerous. It's kind of saying a couple different things about like the youth in revolt, and also, damn the man, right? So that it has a lot of that kind of youthful energy to it, even though these horrible crimes are happening. Um, but yeah, there's a hell of a lot more that's being said than just that. And I think that when the movie came out, what scared a lot of people was because of that, the reaction that I had when I first saw it. I think a lot of adults, number one, didn't get it, but they also didn't trust it with their youth, right? And that's probably what caused a lot of the backlash. And what's funny is that I mentioned on the top that the movie was banned in England. I don't actually believe it had a whole countrywide ban. It was actually taken out of circulation by Stanley Kubrick because of the backlash critically, who were accusing him essentially of being this, I don't know what the right word is, but someone
like
who
glorifying violence,
glorifying violence and inciting violence in youth. Yeah. And he was like, "Oh, this is not at all what I was expecting people to get out of this movie," and it really bummed him out. And he took it out of circulation because he thought he in the messaging. The censor board in England gave it they rated it X, certificate X, which fits. It definitely should have gotten that rating, but they didn't censor it. It was then banned in a few counties. There were county boards that they could like refuse to show the movie in their counties, but really it was mostly like hidden by Stanley himself because he thought he failed. And we talked a little bit, I think, about the failure of film in Stanley Kubrick before in an earlier episode. It's like, what does it mean for your film to be successful? And I think you would argue that this one really wasn't, for a variety of reasons.
But what's funny is over here in America, he only trimmed 30 seconds of the sexual content.
Yeah.
But here it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, bring all that violence. It's cool.
Yeah.
But it's it's very funny how the UK and the US both had different eyes on really bad censorship. They had bad censorship in two different areas. But I think this is a movie that is, I think it also worried people because it is, there's a lot to be said here about various society, about, the morality of people, where somebody like Alex he's not devoid of moral. He's bored by good moral judgment. He's not against the idea. Like he punishes one of his droogs for making fun of the girl that's singing Ludwig van Beethoven, and Ode to Joy in particular. Now, granted, that's his favorite musician, which probably he keeps that from the droogs, but he's not against saying, I like this even for other people. So like, those people are not my people. I don't identify with them. I don't ever want to become those people, but they like something I like. And, so he does have a moral response not to make fun of that other person. But
I don't know if that's morality personally. I think he considers it an affront to himself that Dim is making fun of something he likes.
Fair enough.
I think the whole of his being cured is to take his immorality and use it against him. Yeah.
Well, it is kind of funny that of all the people who stands up to make the point of the movie, it's the preacher who's like,
he's the only one who.
It's like, you've stolen this man's free will, which is funny because if you really kind of boil down religion and following God, technically free will isn't really a tenet of.
It's a little ironic.
Well, it may be, but not totally, not 100%. I mean, the statement he's making there is he's essentially saying that man is not inherently good, right? And to take away man's ability to do bad actually takes away his choice, and it's free will that makes a human, a man, a man. And that is in line with church teaching in Catholicism, that probably Church of England, which is pretty close to Catholicism in a lot of ways. The whole idea is that you have to go to God of your own free will, right? You cannot be compelled to love God. And to sort of compel a man towards good when it's not his true intent it makes the whole act meaningless, right?
Right.
So, and that's really what is at stake here, towards the third act, of course, which we're jumping far ahead. But
Right.
but I do think that it makes sense that it is the clergyman who makes that point. I think that a lot of what we see in Christianity in America in the last few decades has clouded that. Yep.
Yeah. It's, well, if only you were forced to,
Right.
then we would live in a just society or a moral society. But no,
there's a great line that illustrates the government on that point. I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not going to be able to find it in my notes this quickly, but the government official says something along the lines, well, we don't care about moral and ethics. We just want the crime to stop. Right.
Yep.
Right.
Pretty much exactly what he says.
Yeah. Right. It's if we felt better about just killing this guy in the electric chair or with lethal injection, we do that instead. But let's try to put a good face on all of this.
Right. Oh yeah, we're doing good.
Right.
And we're changing a person's nature rather than destroying it.
Right. Exactly.
But in reality, is that really what's happening?
Right.
They are destroying humanity.
So yeah, I mean, really, we get things started. It's a regular, it's practically just, Tuesday freaking night for Alex and his gang of droogs. They're at the, was it the Corova Milk Bar?
Yeah.
And, they are drinking milk that is laced with adrenochrome to give them an extra edge to prepare them for
sharpen them up.
Yep, to prepare them for the night of ultra violence that is ahead of them. And they are now in the book, Alex and his gang are 15-year-olds. In this, it is more like that they are youths, but they are probably a little bit more like 17, 18, 19, somewhere along there. But
yeah, I believe they're still in high school. It's implied that he's missing school, or not implied. He is missing school.
Well, he's a truant, which is going to bring in his probation officer later anyway, because it's probably all part of the probation to be in school and not be truant for any reason. Plus, we know you like to beat old people, so we found a beaten up old bum. That draws a lot of attention to himself. But that's exactly where they go. They leave the milk bar and they go to they find a bum who is singing in an underpass, and he's stinking drunk, and Alex cannot stand the sight or the sound of this. And the reason for that is, not the reason, but the way I look at that is, I feel like he doesn't want to become that guy. He doesn't want to grow old. He doesn't want to lose his edge. And he looks at, in a way, it's more like he's rebelling against age more so than he is really.
Well, he does say that anyone who acts this way, he's contemptuous towards,
right?
But especially the old. So It's kind of like youth in revolt,
right? But not in revolt against the system, a revolt against becoming insignificant.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, you can kind of say that Alex embodies that same kind of sense of invincibility, that a lot of youth has. And he wields it in very, very bad ways.
Yeah, 100%.
So they kick the shit out of this old man, and then they decide to make off with a car.
It's oh god, the it's one of the more striking images of the movie, but in the tunnel,
Yeah,
with them
the
in
silhouettes. Yeah,
and the light, shining through. It's like, oh, I mean, that's I think part of what makes this movie so dangerous is how beautifully the violence is shot.
It's inviting.
Right?
It is inviting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's seductive even. Where it's such the shots are so well done that it looks cool.
Yeah.
I mean, just every shot in this movie looks cool, or I mean, it's like just them sitting in the milk bar is a cool opening shot. You are, I mean, you're scared, and yet you want to see more. What are these guys? What are these weirdos?
I think I do agree on some score. Score. I didn't mean to say that on here, but the way this movie plays with the music, the music set to film or the film set to music, either way, it's intoxicating throughout, right?
Yeah.
And the music, I think, is probably more important in this movie of Kubrick's than any of his, including 2001 and The Shining. It's every scene, the music is painstakingly chosen for a specific tone. And
also because it's super important to the plot.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my point. And I think that again makes the movie seductive. There is just something that is hypnotizing about this movie, especially the first act, which is really the most overt of the film, right?
Well, yeah, it's Alex in just living his life. It's not even all that reckless because he knows what he's doing. He is almost calculated in his directionless living, where it's like, what trouble can we get ourselves into? Turn the corner, there's our trouble. We'll get into this or whatever.
I think too, it's sort of, man. I mean, you think about the language of the movie, right, and the slang that is used.
That slang is Nadsat, which is an Anglo-Russian slang.
Yeah, and
poetic.
A lot of it that you're hearing, you don't quite understand it at first. I mean, you're picking up on bits of context to understand what the words mean, right? And a lot of that context is coming through violence.
Yeah.
Right? So that's really off-putting and disorienting because you're making sense of things by watching things that don't make sense in a society, right?
Right. Yeah. I think another thing that I found interesting in the very beginning, and I think it's before they get to the writer's house, is they run into Billy Boy.
Yeah, that's the next thing after they beat up the old man. They go for more. They go for some more beatings.
but it takes place on a stage, so it's kind of like this is, we're all just actors here. There are no, whatever's happening here isn't real or significant. It's just a play. It's just a show. Something
Alex says later, we'll get to it. I don't want to spoil it now, but it emphasizes that point, Chuck. Yep.
Yeah, I may have missed that or not, but it's so great because you're watching it and it looks like a play. It kind of takes down the violent nature of these guys who are getting ready to rape a girl when Alex and the Droogs show up and they get into the well choreographed fight that I mentioned earlier.
We'll think about how they're able to push his ability to do bad from him. It's by making him watch.
Yeah, he watches films.
Yeah. Watches films. Yeah.
Right. he viddies
Bitty stuff with his glazzies.
Yeah. Yes.
I wish that we were dedicated and smart enough to just script it out this entire episode in the slang speak.
In that set. Yeah, no. No,
That
thank
could have
you.
been fun, or maybe even a section of it.
Or we could have.
All three of them are thinking, "Oh, is he teasing something?" No, I'm not.
Or
We're not
all
going to do
three
that.
of us, or we talk like the people in Demolition Man, like those
Oh, no.
assholes.
Oh God,
Yeah,
those assholes.
those
Yeah.
assholes and those future assholes.
We already sound like assholes, so we're doing
Right. We're
yeah.
too late. No, but one thing also about that scene in the theater, where they fight Billy's gang. He is that is, and it's another dangerous scene because Alex and the Droogs save a girl from being raped.
Right.
It's a little bit of a hero moment. In whatever morality this movie is operating in. It's
Right.
like, oh, they're not so bad now. You know, that girl got away. And then they beat up the guys, beat the shit out of those guys that they, that were attacking the girl. And they were outnumbered too.
Yeah, 4 to 5.
4 to 5. And it's like,
Yep.
wow, these guys are like kind of awesome. Awesome in the sense that they can fight off 5 guys. And I don't dislike the fact that they saved the girl.
Right.
You know,
But
so
you
it's like
don't get that moment for very long, though.
no, you don't, because they yank that away from you. They take
Right.
off in the stolen car, which was something 95, which I'm assuming
Oh.
this movie takes place in the 90s.
Yeah, it's a Durango 95.
Durango 95.
It purred away real horror show.
Yeah. And it is a
love that.
horror scene because Alex is now in his zone. He is ready to do some really awful shit now. And that is, they come up to a place that has a sign that just says home on the outside. I always like that. Although I think that's a for real thing. I think it's a hidden driveway and it's a sign warning.
I do like that Alex later makes mention of that.
Yeah.
He's like, I did think that it was odd to,
Yeah.
I forget paraphrasing, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The sign with home emblazoned or something like that.
Right, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Because it also helps him realize where he's returned to.
Right, exactly.
So this is really the beginning of the end of Alex. He fakes an accident, or he rings the doorbell. It's late at night. The wife of this writer, who, by the way, the writer in this is
He's great.
is Patrick McGee.
Yeah.
Patrick McGee is a very scary person in movies and in real life.
In real life?
Oh, he was known to be a big time drunk. Like if you were to put Patrick McGee and our old boy
Oliver Reed.
Oliver Reed together, a town would be dry by morning.
Well, I'm reading this book, The Hellraisers, that's about Oliver Reed, Richard Harris, Peter O'Toole, and Richard Burton. And man, those 4 guys, holy hell.
It'd be like locusts coming in, except for really thirsty ones.
I wonder if there's some Patrick McGee stories in there. I bet you there are.
Yeah, I don't know. He was known to be a very mean drunk, I believe. He's excellent as a very scary character in Lucio Fulci's Black Cat. I highly recommend that.
I was saying I watched Coppola's Dementia 13 again recently, and he's in that. And he's very proto Dr. Loomis in that.
Yeah.
Like you get big time Dr. Loomis vibes from him, kind of like this crazy old kook who no one believes him, but he's really got all the information that nobody wants to hear. Yeah.
So he is a writer. Now, we don't really know much more. We find out at the end he writes subversive material. That's not a great thing when a government person says something like that. That should be a warning sign of what's wrong with society.
It should be a warning sign that we should be reading his stuff.
Right. Which in the book, what he's writing a book called A Clockwork Orange,
Awesome.
talking about how you really can't change the nature of a man. But anyway, so he
Patrick McGee is also, I think, in the best segment of the old English horror anthology, Tales from the Crypt. He's in the one with the razor blades in the hallway. He's the blind man who like is the leader of all the old folks who revolt against their mistreatment. Oh, he's so good in that. Yeah,
that's good stuff. So his wife goes to answer the door, and at first she doesn't want to let this guy in to use the phone, because even though Alex says, my friend's bleeding in the road, we had a terrible accident, so on and so forth, she isn't going to let him in. And then the writer, the old man, says, well, who's at the door? And she's like, well, they say there's a terrible accident and they want to use our phone. And to which he says, then I guess you should let him in, giving up the gameplay here by the wife. And they bust in wearing masks with big giant dick noses, and they beat the old man up pretty good, and they rape the woman, and then they
all while singing in the rain,
which is really important.
Ready for love.
Yeah, it is important, and it's wild because that wasn't in the script. That was Malcolm McDowell. It was his improv, and Stanley Kubrick loved it. In fact, he thought it was hilarious. Which, and he was like, yeah, and he built like a lot of the movie around it in the end. Which is kind of wild that that for someone who isn't necessarily known as much of a collaborator with his actors, that one of the most iconic things in this movie was improv.
Yeah, that's wild. I always crack up, and I don't know why we used to do it, but me and my buddies would always just yell, ready for love, like randomly. Because it makes that scene like...
It cuts the tension.
And I hate to say it makes it a lot funnier when it shouldn't be funny at all.
Yeah.
Well, it's so, I mean, it's
cartoonish
really,
almost.
Yeah, it's really important that the poster talks about being the adventures of a young man whose principal interests are rape, ultraviolence, and Beethoven. That's a funny line. It's not written with seriousness.
Right.
But that's right there on the poster. And the term ultraviolence places this into a cartoonish space. And it is, I think it changes your opinion. And I think it changes how you approach everything in this movie. Even the stuff you shouldn't appreciate on a film level or on an artistic level or whatever you want to call it. The two main scenes in which Alex is directly attacking a woman are oddly palatable. And again, I think it goes with the style of the cinematography, the set design, the outlandish kind of weird sci-fi feel that this movie has.
But I think that's what also invites its critics and its controversy, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, how many times have we talked about how critics handled things like Friday the 13th? Mm-hmm. They don't want that sort of stuff to be seen as entertainment. But it happens sometimes, and it's good art should challenge that, and I think that this is a movie that you can say is good art. Pretty top tier art.
I will say that I've avoided watching this movie probably for like the last 10 years because I didn't really I didn't want to really experience those two scenes in particular. Mm-hmm. But again, like, you're right, it is oddly palatable, even though it's horrific. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what if that's intentional, or if or what that's trying, or what Stanley Kubrick's trying to say with that imbalance. Is he trying to make a statement that
Here's my thought.
This is inherent in any of us in some degree. Maybe it's pushed out of some because the scales are in the other direction, but it's a part of humanity. I don't know.
Here's my thought on this aspect, because I've watched, thanks to you guys, thousands of Italian exploitation films.
I'm going to say that's more thanks to Jason than me.
Maybe whomever. But there are tons of very uncomfortable and unwatchable rape scenes in these movies.
Yeah.
And when you come back to this film, again, like you said, it makes it more palatable. And I think that is because we're seeing it through the lens of Alex. Like, at this point, he enjoys this stuff, so we should enjoy it too, in a way, which is like contrary to how he's fixed. Like, they make these scenes to him unbearable instead of bearable, and we're uncomfortable at the same time. Like,
well, we don't want to take it from us too.
Yeah, when my stomach starts to turn in this movie is when his does.
Yeah.
Which is really wild how effective Kubrick was in accomplishing
weird.
that.
Well,
That's
I
really
think
weird.
that the later attacking scene, which we'll get to here momentarily, the way it's shot in the fisheye lens, it puts us kind of there.
There's so much intentional comedy in that scene.
Yes.
I mean,
from the dick and butt statue,
and it's funny,
Yeah.
and Malcolm McDowell's performance, the way he examines the sculpture.
well, he's surprised by it. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
this person's just as weird as I am.
Naughty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
because he doesn't expect an older woman to have that, and but yeah,
And she's a very sexual woman, just based on all the stuff that's on her walls, but we're going to get there. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
we'll
Go
get
ahead.
there.
Important stuff
So,
first.
so they we don't see too much of the attack. We see some gut kicking in the to the beat of Singing in the Rain. We see some butts smacking to the rhythm of Singing in the Rain. We see him cut.
Ready for love?
We see them cut the holes in the girl's sweater to expose her breasts. The thing is we don't really see too much beyond the humiliation part of this.
Of the woman, at least. The man gets beat to shit.
The man gets beat up, but the woman is humiliated.
And when the camera is on Patrick McGee as he's made to watch what's happening to his wife. Yeah.
Right. So we're just watching him, and so then it kind of it goes back to the milk bar where he hears the woman singing Ludwig van, and he chastises Dim, which is the big dummy who is an idiot.
Oh my God.
He's so dumb.
It's Dim, Georgie, and I can't remember the other guy with the eye
Georgie
patch.
and Dim are the two most important ones.
Oh, Pete.
The other one is Pete. Yeah.
Pete
Oddly
disappears
enough,
after the scene.
Yeah, he's the first one he mentions too, when he mentions
Mhm.
his drugs, and then you never really hear from him at all.
Yeah, we don't hear hardly any lines from him. He doesn't do what happens the next day. He doesn't seem to be part of that, or at least at first. And then we don't see him after the second attack ever again. But the other two are extremely important. So he eventually goes back home, where he jerks off to Beethoven.
Ludwig van.
He hangs out with the snake in more ways than one. And he goes.
Dude, his snake is pointing its face at a vagina. Like, it couldn't be more like right in your face. It's kind of again funny symbolism. Yeah, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, because Alex himself is a snake too.
Yeah,
and he is making people almost like him.
And not to be too biblical, but it's there. It's very much the serpent in the garden, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then,
I mean, especially when you consider the theme of the nature of man, good or evil.
Right.
there's the whole concept of original sin with Adam and Eve. Yeah.
Yep. So the next morning comes, and his doting blue-haired mother, literally blue-haired mother.
The older women's wigs in this movie.
Oh my God. It's hilarious. So anyway, she wants to wake Alex up for school, and he's like, "No, I got a pain in me Gulliver. He's got a headache." And so he's like, I got to sleep it off, because he's not been in school like all week. And it's like, if I don't, then, I'm going to probably miss more days, which is these are the excuses we've given in our youth. And so,
I'm liable to miss a lot more school.
Yeah. I mean, he does kind of make a point. Anyway, so he wakes up, he walks around in his teeny tiny underoos while he's picking his ass. And who's waiting for him that ran across his mother as she was leaving for work?
Mr. Deltoid. His truancy officer. They call him something else, but
he's a corrections officer or a probation officer, basically. But yeah, he's there waiting for him. And Jason, would you like to explain his conversation style?
Not really.
He is stereotypical stuffy Brit.
I thought you were going to say yes, I will.
Yes, I shall.
Heavens to Murgatroyd.
Yes, I shall explain how he talks. Yes. He is.
What have you been up to last evening? Yes.
Yes. So
some nastiness. Yes.
He is basically on to Alex that he must have been up to no good. Elsewise he would be at school. Probably he wouldn't have stayed up all night.
Plus his name was dropped by Billy Boy.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you see, there was a Billy Boy. Yes, and he was beaten up. Yes. So, and then he grabs Alex's dick, which is hilarious.
Yeah,
because the whole time he's talking to him,
I'm the only one who can save you from yourself.
Yep, and then he smashes his nuts. But the whole time that he's talking to him, they're leaning back onto the bed that he's sitting on, and it's so uncomfortable, but so hilarious. Like
that scene is funny. I mean, it's funny.
It's funny. It's a hilarious scene, and but Alex is like, no, I'm doing great. He's even trying to talk properly too. Is kind of like that Bart Simpson. Kind of, I'm not doing anything wrong. Why do you think I'm, to blame for all these things?
Yeah, he calls him brother, and then he changes it to sir.
Sir, yep. He's putting on that air of boyish charm when speaking to an elder. So
yes.
He then, so the warrant officer or whatever he is leaves, and I think we've called him 4 different types of officers. He may be on I don't know. But he leaves, and he so Alex gets dressed in his finest
Willy Wonka attire.
Yeah, I mean, it's some sort of awesome crushed velvet long coat. And he goes to check on a record that he has that he has ordered.
I trust you guys saw that 2001 is sitting on the shelf in the
of course. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
I should have known better.
I tell you what is interesting to me is the one woman in there, the young woman who's asking him, who are you going to get? And she names off 3 bands, and one of them is a band called Heaven 17.
Yeah.
Yep.
You notice that?
Yeah, but I can't remember what that's from.
Well, there's an actual band that later in the 80s named themselves Heaven 17.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Wave band.
So you're saying it's like a Mike Nesmith's Elephant Parts and the Tragically Hip?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So anyway, so he meets two girls.
Oh, his damn Willy Wonka outfit too, man.
That's what I said.
Did you? Oh, did you? I'm sorry. I was reading my notes.
That's some yarbles you got there.
I was reading my notes. Sorry.
Huge yarbles you got there.
Clearly, he still has some yarbles.
Yeah. Painting my Gulliver.
Painting your Jason Oliver.
Yeah.
Oh snap!
So all the girls are eating lollipops or icicle or ice
Phallic treats is basically what they are.
Yeah, they're rainbow dicks, basically.
What happened to yours there?
Yeah, one is bent over. So he takes them
cold
back.
and pointless. I love that line though.
Yeah. He takes them back home, and they have fast motion sex, which is also funny.
It's very funny.
In the book, it's a wholly different thing. In the book, of course,
have you read this book, Jeff? You're not a book reader. Have you read this book?
I've read some of the book. It's incredibly hard to read.
Yeah, it is. I've read the book. I
like
actually tried to
Rainbow.
find my copy and I couldn't find it. I don't know what happened.
Well,
to it.
the whole thing is written in the slang.
That's that.
And that's that. So so in the book he's 15. The two girls he picks up are 10, and he rapes them. Like he brutally rapes them instead.
I'm glad they went this way instead.
Yeah. So this is another thing where it's kind of like you're kind of not opposed to this kid's life in the way that the movie shows it. It's like, oh wow, hey, you got to have a threesome with two comely lasses.
And
wow,
it's funny, and it's a funny scene because they both get dressed at one point, and then he undresses them, has sex with them, one of them again, and then while the other one is getting dressed, and then he gets up and undresses her and has sex with her again.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I wonder if that's
a Benny Hill scene.
Yeah,
but I wonder if
it
that
really
was
is
supposed to bring in some question of consent. Like it's still kind of a funny show, but these girls are trying to leave, and he's like, "Nope."
They don't seem to be.
Maybe not.
Fighting.
Maybe not. Yeah.
I mean, sure, you can. I mean, of course, there's a conversation there, but
of all the sex in this
is,
movie, that seems the most consensual.
Yeah, those seem to be really outside of what Alex ends up picturing at the end when he celebrates being cured. All right, this seems like the type of stuff he really would engage in when he is not with his droogs.
Right.
Which is interesting because also he seems like a completely different person without the game. He's a little classier. He's a little less mean. He's not putting on a show for anyone. Right.
He's not on the stage.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after that, the droogs meet up with him. And I do have things to say later about this world because this world is filthy. And it is meant
a dystopian future, right? Of some variety.
A little bit. It is intended to be either socialist or communist style of living situation.
Probably because of the Russian. It's a bit like
there's a lot of Russian reference in
it. Reminded me of Firefly and all the Chinese and how that society runs.
Well, there's also some visual Russian cues too in there.
Yeah.
But also I kind of look at it as this is the world we would have if libertarians ran everything. Because everything would be privatized. What money is there to be made in collecting trash?
Even the blood would be made by a firm in this kind of
right. Yeah.
And he even comments on that kind of
right.
later.
Yeah, it is. This is a world in which nobody pulls their own weight. I mean, you have and you have a very differentiated class system as well. So yeah, this would be a nightmare if this was a real world scenario, where you would have the upper class just enjoying life and the lower class struggling to survive, even going so far as to fucking pillage the people who do have things. But anyway, so that's pretty much all I had to say about that anyway. So I guess we took care of that. Took care of that mental note that I made while watching it. But anyway, so Georgie and Dim think that Alex thinks too small.
Yeah.
That he is wasting their time by basically going after random violence and little payouts. That if they were running the show, they would like rob a bank. But I think that their plans would immediately lead them to jail.
Yeah.
Because they are not smart enough to stay under the radar. Alex, for the most part, stays under the radar. It's random attacks. They mask themselves. It's a smash and grab. They just take what they can. They don't exacerbate their situation.
Mm-hmm.
And the Droogs want to go bigger, which is potentially very dangerous. And I love when Alex shows up Dim by straddling him in that weird gaming chair, and then
it just
slets down on him. And
yep.
it like sticks, like he's like he traps his hands too, so he can't fight back at all. That's fantastic. But he basically is like, oh, so you want more say in what we do? Okay. So they go out walking by the river.
Well, I like some other things he says. He says,
go for it.
They want the big money is what they say.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, what would you do with the big money?
Yeah.
It's like, you want pretty Paula, you take her, right? You want a car, you steal it, right? What do you need money for? Everything you want, you can take, right? Yeah. But yeah, then Georgie.
Pete's just hanging out
Pete's just hanging out. Pete is Switzerland.
Yeah, right.
But Georgie also is like, this is part of the new way. Oh, there's a new way, is there? Yes. The first part is there's no more picking on Dim, right? Because Dim was the object of Alex's ire at the milk bar earlier.
Let's face it, Dim kind of calls it on himself.
But Alex seems to go along with it. He's like, well, tell us about, that's later actually. He's like, okay, there's a new way. And yeah, go ahead. Take it back, Jeff.
Yeah. So now they're walking along what looks like a river's, like the side of a river, but also kind of looks like a waste treatment facility.
The water is really gross everywhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't drink anything here. This is a dystopian future, and when the other government takes over, it doesn't get any better. But anyway, so the Alex. You can see the gears turning because also he looks very angry. And he decides to take the moment to basically ambush his own guys, tosses Georgie into the drink, beats up Dim pretty good. And again,
Pete backs up. He just backs away.
Okay. So yeah, again, Pete's it seems like if you got more of each of their individual stories, Pete just wants to be cool and be accepted someplace.
That would be like where Rob Zombie would come in and give us Pete's backstory and why
he probably
non-choices.
He probably killed a couple of strippers and he feels real bad about it.
Yeah.
He probably says fuck a lot because every other word in the Rob Zombie script is fuck. But anyway.
He restores order, right? That's
he essentially that's his plan. He is going to return to the top, but he is kind of interested in this one hit that the guys are talking about.
Now it needs to be his idea, kind of a little bit. It's one of those things where now that I want to know, it's important. Before it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely more about keeping the balance of power in his favor.
Yeah. And let the other guys know that at any point in time he can drop the hammer on them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which goes against his favor. He should have known way before he found out that things were going to go in the other direction. So they say there's this health farm where this crazy cat lady is got like a whole room full of gold. So we'll just go in there and we'll get it. Okay. So they try the whole there's an accident, we need to use your phone or whatever. She doesn't buy it. And in fact, even calls the police.
Yeah, because she read about this in the paper.
Because they said something the exact same way, which this is Alex's downfall. I don't think he sees outside of his own bubble. He
doesn't learn from anything.
Right. So he decides, hey, I'm going to go break into the window upstairs, and then I'm going to come downstairs and I'll unlock the door. You guys wait here. So he goes in, and that's when he should realize, like, wait a minute, something's weird here. Why are we being turned away? Why aren't they helping me more in some way, shape, or form? So he gets in and he finds the crazy cat lady in her room that has a ceramic dick and butt.
Huge.
It's a huge dick and a small butt. You know, I mean, it should just be
I always thought they were balls, not butt, but
no, it's a butt. But I mean, they should just call it a representation of Jeff.
Small dick and butt.
No, a huge dick, small butt.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. It's the other way around. I always get that confused. Anyway, so he basically he double takes at the statue of the dick and butt, and then he realizes it's a perpetual machine that if he taps it, it will like do the chicken thing.
It's a balsanome or a butsanome.
A butsanome. And it rocks really, and the way it rocks
hilarious. Cracks me up.
Yeah, because
it's looking
it goes
for a mechanism,
and then it pops back up. Yeah, it's so funny because he can't get his mind off of it either.
Right.
At one point, it starts to slow down, and then she tells him to get out, and he gets mad, and he just hits it again, and it just it kills me. But anyway, so she's pretty wise to him, and so he basically decides to attack her, but he uses the dick and butt to attack.
Did she? One of you might know because I'm kind of half blind. The bust that she picked up was Ludwig van, right?
It's either
she
that
was
or Bach,
swinging at him.
I would imagine. Yeah,
pretty sure. Yeah, pretty sure.
Yeah.
I thought Beethoven. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
He's able to defend himself with the dick and butt.
It's kind of like the hand on the face routine.
Kind of is
keeping a smaller person away from you.
Right. Exactly.
but with a giant dick.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how I keep people away from me.
I'm assuming that there's probably symbolism there too.
Yeah.
Some sort of, I don't know, patriarchal symbolism there or something. But yeah.
Ready for love.
Also,
Stop eventually.
You sound like a parrot when you say it. It cracks me up.
Well, that's what Dim is. He's a parrot.
Yeah, I know, but
yeah.
He is, but you sound like a parrot.
Yeah. That's just me
Dim
taking the
like
Dim. That's me taking the Dim impersonation one step further.
Gotcha.
I'm really leading into it.
But is it a Dim impersonation? I don't think it is. I think it's actually quite smart, Chuck.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway.
Thank you.
But anyway, so so he ends up knocking her to the ground, and he ends up bludgeoning her with the big dick.
Yeah.
But he hears the sirens of the incoming police because she did call the police before he came into the room. And so he goes outside and he's like, all right, boyos, we got to get out of here. But they're hiding a milk bottle, and they smash him with it, leaving him to be caught by the coppers. And our probation officer comes back in to talk to him, and we find out that eventually we do find out that the woman died from her injuries, which is bad. That's especially bad. because that ends up becoming a 14-year jail sentence for our dear narrator.
Yes.
So the movie then kind of moves 2 years later. But we do get to see some of what he's doing. Now, one of the bigger parts of the movie that changes from the book, from what I understand, is that there is a lot more spent in that 2 years than what the movie does. The movie spends 5 minutes processing Alex for his jail sentence. That's nothing in the book. What the book does is it spends a lot of the time with him making friends with the preacher, with his relationship with the other inmates. The fact that he gets picked for this new psychological conditioning thing is because he delivers a death blow on a bunkmate of his that acts out of line. And so they pick him as opposed to what happens in this movie. But what Kubrick decided to do was to make the whole system farcical.
Yeah.
It's this ridiculous, it is a ridiculous, dehumanizing bureaucracy that jail becomes. They never call him Alex again, at least the only person who does. Well, no, I don't even think Preacher does.
No, Preacher calls him a number as well. Yep.
Yeah, 155
655
321 or 321. Yeah. So 655 321, and he loses his identity there, and Kubrick really hits on that because I think that ties to what happens to him when he's released a little bit more. But that's really the only main departure from the from the book. That's the primary departure.
And you hear a lot from Alex again, and he's your reliable narrator because he's kind of telling you in no uncertain terms that he's being the preacher's pet for his own benefit.
He
right?
loves reading the Bible, but
he loves reading the Bible.
Parts.
He likes the Old Testament. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and he takes all the killing and sex and of the Old Testament. He loves it.
He puts himself in all those scenes too in his brain.
He fantasizes about himself, as like whipping Christ. Yeah.
Which
is another way to show you he's not really being reformed.
No. He's using it to his advantage.
Yeah,
and
again, he's smart. He's intelligent, and it's never really in question. Yeah,
and also it should be pointed out that Malcolm McDowell is using these scenes to his advantage to become Caligula. Some years later. Yeah. So but he is. And, what's funny is you're hearing him talk about his plan, but when he's talking to the preacher, you feel for the guy a little bit, because he does ask, is there a chance for me?
Well, he's convincing.
Right. He is. And that again, he's a sociopath.
Yeah.
It's like he talks so sincerely, but we know he's rotten. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I was going to say the movie is about to literally tell you that we are nurture versus nature too. Like it's outside forces that have made Alex become this way in some sense. At least it's alluding to that a little bit.
Yeah. I don't think it ever answers that question, but I think it tells both sides of the coin.
Maybe it does. Yeah,
I think it does. I think it does a good job of staying a little mysterious there. Yeah.
But his whole fix is nurture versus nature, right? I mean, it's not really nurturing. I don't know what you'd call it, but that's the idea behind it.
Well, it's interesting because that's the big departure with the book too, in the chapter that never got released in America, is that a man can change, right?
Right.
So the right type of nurturing can make a man better. So he's not necessarily just evil by nature, right?
Right.
The movie, I don't think really.
It's a little more conditioning.
I think it falls a little bit down onto maybe some conditioning, but also why can't he change? right?
Well, yeah, because the reason why, I mean, Kubrick said that he did read the final chapter, which he always referred to as the extra chapter,
Yeah.
which I don't think Anthony Burgess took too kindly to.
Well, it's not his fault.
Well, he was living in England, so he
you're
got
right.
the
You're
extra
right.
novel,
Right.
or you got the extra.
Unless he got
chapter.
the American version first. Somehow.
He may have gotten an American copy of the.
It's very possible.
Yeah, but anyway, so he was aware of that final chapter, and opted not. He said, "I never had a serious intention of using it because it didn't ring true.
Yeah,
It didn't ring true to the 2 hours we just spent with the guy." And it's probably accurate.
he didn't want to let him off the hook.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And while I think there is something that could be said with the novel, with that being a reformation, it doesn't play as well in the movie.
So and we as the viewer don't need to be rewarded for having any sympathy for this guy either. We should be slapped in the face for ever thinking he's a better person than he is.
Right.
But then again, like that speaks to, what is Kubrick saying about society? Does society make Alex the way he is, or was he born bad? Right. And I don't know. I don't know that it really says either way.
I'm kind of glad he doesn't answer that question.
Me too.
He doesn't.
But to me, it kind of feels like if he's going out of his way to say a man can't change, the Alex is just rotten, right? And even medical science can't cure him. Then maybe there's something to this, nature thing after all.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and also,
because it's a pretty scathing indictment on psychotherapy in general.
Yeah.
But that's some pretty crazy psychotherapy
Totally
pulling on him.
Totally.
Oh, it's torture. I mean, they are. It is state-funded torture.
Yeah.
But it is almost kind of like exploiting. I don't know what the right word is here, but the use of, and Jason, you and I have talked about this before, and I've come around like 1,000 times on it. But just the use of medicine to treat people. Mm-hmm. Or the use of these drugs that alter your mind to treat you. Now, I won't go into what I think about this, but I'm fully 1,000% in on people getting the therapy and treatment that they need. But I had a struggle with this years ago, and I think this movie says a lot about that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's interesting too, because a lot of what they do to try to change his behavior, I think it's more about, it's not necessarily about their intent. It's about the fact that they can.
Yeah,
it's the result that they care about.
Right. Yeah. And what else could this be used for? Right.
Right. I mean, this is again another.
It's aversion
on
therapy.
The system.
It's aversion therapy. It's what's been banned in several states to treat, so-called, homosexual conditions.
Right.
Well, you could use this to glorify violence for soldiers.
Right.
Like in a different
100%.
light, right?
Absolutely. You could change your mind, turn you into a killer. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Now, speaking of, during the processing scene in which we have John Cleese, it's not John Cleese, but goofy guy.
It is fucking John Cleese. He won't convince me otherwise.
But goofy guy who yells everything he says. He has Alex undress, to which he then asks him, "Have you been or currently are a homosexual?"
Yeah.
While he's looking at Alex's dick.
Yeah.
And there are other indications that I think that is somebody who is also intended to be a closeted gay person who is being
Rest.
Well, yeah, it's like he's being he's playing the part of a good system.
Well, let's just say when they go later, and we're going to get there quickly, when all of the stuff that is supposed to incite violence from Alex he has a very large reaction to
He doesn't like it
while
hates
he's
it.
watching. No, I
Yeah.
don't. Not Alex. I mean the
The guard is
his eyes get big. I don't know if he hates it or not.
I think he's uncomfortable about what's going on there.
Maybe I just saw a reaction and like he liked the woman, but maybe not. It's interesting.
I got a little bit of both. Like it's disturbing his sensibilities as a good English and proper man,
but it's titillating him.
But it's also titillating him. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody at the prison didn't buy in to what the government was coming to do.
I agree with that.
I think the people in the prison looked at it as, you don't understand these people like we do. It's kind of one of those things where, your big boss comes down while you're like, just trying to deliver the fucking mail from the mailroom and then trying to tell you how to do your job better. They don't know. You don't know what we what we're dealing with.
I think that's perfectly articulated when the prison warden says, he tells them how many to a room, it's 4, and that they could really use money for more space so that, they could raise the quality of life for the prisoners. Actually maybe try to rehabilitate them rather than having them, live in a condition that, could potentially make them worse off.
Right. Well, the person
to which the politician is just like, well, there's no money for that.
Yeah, there's no money for that. But we do have all of these drugs and all of this equipment over here that we just bought. The guy who Alex kills in the book is the 5th member of a room that's only supposed to hold 4.
Yeah.
So it's creating violence in that scenario. So the system is creating the violence.
Yeah.
Which of course you can say goes well with the whole idea of what I was saying earlier about a very wide gap between how people live in this world.
And also furthering Chuck's point about the result of nurture versus nature, right?
Right.
Nurture is still punishing Alex, still creating more of a monster.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the scene that everybody knows about this movie. He is strapped to a chair and his eyes are pried open, and he must watch things like, and at first he kind of likes it. It's like, oh, look, there's a guy being beaten up, and look at the wine that is flowing from him. He reacts to the blood in a very positive way.
This is the line I think that reinforces Chuck's earlier point about the Billy Boys droogs and on the stage, right? And how there's sort of this disconnect between reality and what is fantasy, even in Alex's mind. And he says, it's funny how the colors of the real world only seem really real when you video them on the screen.
Yep. That's exactly right. And then the way he describes this is really, really funny. But then they watch basically these guys gang raping a woman. And he's like, I watched one guy get on top of her, and then another, and then another, and then another. And it's like the way he's talking, like it becomes so sterile, but we're seeing something horrible.
Yeah.
And it just comes across as funny. It's like just hearing the way he keeps saying that another guy is getting in there comes off as funny.
It sounds like a clown car instead of a rape.
Exactly. And it's just like, oh, isn't this funny? Yet another guy is here, or whatever. And it's so, he says it in such a almost innocently gleeful way that it just disconnects you from the horror that you're seeing.
And it's in that same moment where he starts to feel the effects of the drug.
Right, because he's like, and now I don't want to watch another kid.
By the 5th or 6th, I think it says. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And so it's like, okay, I get it. I've had enough now. And then they start showing him stuff like Hitler and all that, all that good stuff that of course is real life horror. This is not something that's simulated now. So but what really breaks him is that the next time they do a treatment, or that we see a treatment, they start playing Beethoven. And he's starting to get, because they're playing Beethoven with the Nazi stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Ninth
specifically
Symphony
the Ninth
specific-
Symphony. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to lose that. So he starts begging to be, it's like, I'm cured. You did it. Yay. Boy, you fixed me. This is great.
I mean, you could argue that's like the only good part of his humanity that he has.
Right. And he doesn't want to lose it.
It's the only way he can comprehend beauty.
Right.
Right.
But he still associates his negative things with it in his
does.
own mind.
He does. Yeah, he twists it. Yep.
But
he calls it gorgeousness and gorgeosity.
Yep.
He says it's a fucking sin to treat Beethoven's music this way because it's
Right.
never done anything to harm anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's interesting, the reverence
That is
he
interesting.
has. Yeah.
Well, I mean, hell, part of the ninth is called Ode to Joy.
Right.
How can that be used negatively?
But I think the fact that he says it's never done anything to anyone makes you wonder about when he does the things he does, who is he doing it to?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't even know how to answer that. That's
I don't either.
a compelling thought for sure.
Yeah. Right. Does he not see his victims as human?
Right.
Is he just acting out against the state?
Or does he see them as everything that has harmed him?
Done something to him. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because certainly his parents are really worthless, ultimately.
It's another kind of commentary on nurture versus nature, right?
It is.
Yeah.
So
Not to keep bringing up that thing, Kelsey,
no.
would make me drink right now. I'm sure.
No, it's there. It's good. I mean, I think it's a really good thread.
No, it is. So they do end up releasing him, basically stamping the word cured on his file and sending him back out.
Should we talk about the performance real quick?
Yes.
The showing of how, to all the officials and such that he is cured,
How they
proving to them. Yeah. That's a weird scene. The two performers, the one man who comes out and insults him and beats him and makes him lick a shoe, and then the woman who comes out naked, essentially taunting him without really doing much of anything other than being naked for him to touch her. And in both cases, him getting sick and not being able to either retaliate or ravish the woman. When both of them finish their performances, they finish with like this flourish off stage, like they are these grand actors.
It's another play, dude. It's another show.
It is. It's another show. It is.
It's like a bookend. This movie has lots of. It's almost like symmetrical.
Yeah.
It's very symmetrical, actually, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's like they're not just scientists. They brought in performers who are,
which I think,
who are bowing, and even the first guy like extends his arm to Alex, like he is his co-player on stage.
Yeah,
it's wild.
What I think that may actually indicate, because I never realized until more recently that. So yes, if we were to say that the life before he went into prison was lived in kind of a dystopian, almost communist state, then what this is all representing, this idea of changing people, not really curing them, but just changing them so that they get the result that they want, is more of an authoritarian dystopia.
Yep.
If you think that way, those performers are propagandists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this is the state
they certainly
giving
are
them
in
a
this
regular
scene.
job.
They certainly are in this scene 1,000%. And if that extends farther than this scene, I get that.
I would, because using music against him, having performers essentially torture him on stage, this would be using art against people, and that is a very authoritarian thing.
Yep.
Right.
So I mean, it would line all of that up to where, hey, these actors sold themselves out just so they have a regular job.
I would like to say two things here, if I may. The way that he describes the sickness as a detective waiting around the corner when he's about to grab the lady's breasts to come out and arrest him is fucking beautiful. I don't know if that's book or script, but it's beautiful.
A lot of the book is directly from the or a lot of the
script for Spumrug
book. So
And if anyone made me gave me a version of my favorite music, I'd kill them if I didn't get sick with violence. That's all.
I would.
That makes me sick to my stomach just thinking. Like, as much a part of music is in my life, it makes me sick just thinking about it. And that's why I started getting so sick towards the end of this movie. Like, the stomach turning stuff was like, oh my God.
Well, there is also a couple of things that they do with music in the third act that does create a physical reaction in me for different reasons. We'll explain that when we get to it, I'll explain that when we get to it. But I would vomit on them until they drowned in my vomit. If they took my most valuable thing away from me. So anyway, so hey, here's your stuff. See you later. You're cured. We'll take you home. But he comes home and finds out that
Joe Schmo.
There's a strange fella sitting on the sofa.
Hey, there's a strange fella sitting on the sofa. And the guy's dressed kind of like Robin Hood. Like,
he's got a weird velour or fuzzy.
Yeah, it's like red. It's like he went into Legend of Zelda and got the red power ring, and his clothes are red.
There's some real quick before we get in more into Joe. The demonstration again, and there are people who make objections at the demonstration, and for good reason, because the very first demonstration should be terrifying for anyone in that room, because Alex is unable to defend himself. Right? He is actually being done harm onto, and he's unable to protect himself. And then you think about, is he allowed any type of healthy sexual behavior? It doesn't seem so. Right?
No, definitely not.
So it is not just taken away his free will and it is neutered him, it's castrated him.
Yeah, he's essentially now a eunuch.
Yeah.
In service of whatever, I don't know what.
What place does this kind of person have in society? Right?
And he actually, this is a commentary, he called someone a eunuch early in the movie. Mm-hmm. Another mirror to like how this I need to watch it with that lens, because there's so much that like occurs in the beginning that occurs again in the end. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, again, the whole third act is a reverse now of the first act.
Absolutely.
It's like a dark It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
It's a Christmas Carol. Right? All the things that all the people he did harm to have now come back to haunt him.
Right.
And he has no ability to react in even a normal way.
He only has one recourse.
Right.
Really, right? And we find out soon enough.
Exactly.
What that is.
Yep. So
he goes home, right?
He goes home and he discovers that old Joe here has already paid a month's out into
2 months. 2 months.
So we just can't throw Joe out.
Or maybe it's a month.
It is just month. Well, and it's the start of the new month. So he's got 2 full months here.
Yeah.
He's in the green, man. He is, it's like you can't throw him out. That would be that you just can't treat a guy like that.
Can I just say Grady is way too fucking meek in these scenes?
Oh yeah. But he's also the guy who attempted to marry Ming to Dale in Flash.
Oh, you're right. He is.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So
I think he's it's interesting. He's scared of his son.
Yeah. Well, it's the first indication that while Alex may be cured, there is no cure for how society treats ex-cons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. I mean, when we're talking about that dark mirror, Jason, everyone that he ran into before now has protection.
Yeah.
Everyone he hurt before now has protection. His parents have Joe. Right. The Droogs have badges.
Yeah.
And the old man has, I forget.
Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Darth
Julian.
Vader. He has Darth Vader. Yep.
Yeah. That ain't bad.
Right. I'd take Darth Vader's protection, but it's interesting. They all have a shield of a sort against
That's very
them.
true. That's very true.
Yeah. Which is exactly, though, how we treat we protect ourselves from ex-cons by putting them over there in that halfway house, or they they were an 18-year-old and they sent their 17-year-old girlfriend naked pictures. They need to register forever now. They have to go to every neighbor every time they move someplace and tell people that. This is the exact same thing. It is
castrated and ostracized.
We as much as people say that they don't want to have people who have been convicted for whatever crime to be mistreated in some way, it's all too common for us to put some sort of distance to them, put them over there. I don't want them here. Mm-hmm. People don't want to live next to jails, which is the best place to live, because that ain't the place they're going to stop. They're going to get out of town and go to the suburbs. It's like maybe you do want to live next to the prison, whatever. But the point is that everybody wants distance from that, right? Like you don't, unless it's a white collar criminal, you don't want those people around you. And we've been trained to think that way.
Yeah.
And Alex is now facing it right away.
This is, I think, if you don't already have a little bit of sympathy for Alex at this point, I think this is when you have to, because and this is really the only moment where Alex shows he's capable of some type of pain, be pained, an emotion that's not just anger, right?
Or not caused by his new aversions.
Right. I mean, he weeps, and even Joe makes fun of him for it. Right.
Yeah. Oh, and Joe,
he's being
I
kicked out of his home. He's being cut off by his family,
right.
and that is actually hurting him. It's not just an act. And then he lashes out with the only way he knows how. It's like, you'll be sorry, and he storms off to try and take some of that power back. But he's wounded.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, like, he has to tell his parents that he's leaving home now. Mm-hmm. It's like, yep, well, I guess I'll see you around. Thanks for nothing. It's, and there's, the parents don't go after him, don't try to explain nothing. It's like,
his mom does like lose her shit on the couch, to be consoled by Joe.
And his dad does say, don't take it that way, and tries to explain it to him. But again, they're afraid of him. And two, he surprised them in the middle of they had no idea he was coming.
Right.
They couldn't prepare for this. Mm-hmm. So while there is some sense of me feeling sorry for him, he's not ultimately a victim here.
Right. Yeah. Well, I agree with that. And he even comes home thinking he's going to get some kind of like joyous welcome.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a delusion there as well.
Well, some of that also, though, you can put some of that onto the government too, because they're like, okay, doors open. Here's your shit. See you later.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad your suit still fits.
But he did make a point of saying he wanted it to be a surprise.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Well, but they are reading the newspaper and it says the killer has been. But see, that's another thing. Society's already labeled him as a killer, and they are not changing that.
Right.
They are saying science has said that he's cured, but they still
experiment. He's a fucking COVID vaccine.
Right. And well, what he is he's a label. He's a killer, and science has said they fixed him. But they didn't say killer reformed to man. It's killers, and science says he's fixed.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the little subtitle on the fucking main story splashed across the front page isn't what's going to be read by people.
No, it's sensationalizing, which honestly, I mean, it's a pretty sensational thing. The whole idea in general. Yeah.
Sure. Well, and there's something to say there about the court of public opinion too.
Right.
Because once the public opinion says you're guilty, they never change their mind.
Right. Right.
Because in some way you are guilty forever, regardless.
But that's not how the system has told us that it works.
I guess
but it's how the system of society works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're told that we're innocent until we're proven guilty, and once we serve our time, we've done our bit. We go back to life.
But he didn't
But
serve
those
his
two
time. That's the thing. He didn't really serve his time. He did an experimental procedure to cure him, and 50% or more of the population has every right to question whether this procedure actually works. It is not. This is the first time. This isn't 1,000 times, and we've had a 95%. Well, hold on, a 95% success rate or anything, right?
Sure.
There is no proof here.
Sure, but I mean, but he is let out with the exchange of he got to be the science project, which the system is now saying it's fixed and everything is great. He's perfectly safe to be around, and yet people are still going to not see beyond the word killer in the headline.
But again,
the government,
the government, right, is saying this. I think that people are very justified in questioning what they're being told.
Fair enough.
And even if it is the case, who's to say that this experimental technique can't fail? Right? Like the inhibitor chip. The inhibitor chip might burn out, and the killer robot can go back on his rampage.
Or Data's chip. Data's chip.
Yeah. He might become a laughing, joking numbnuts.
He might start telling fucking dad jokes.
Yeah.
So I think all I'm saying is not to discredit you, Jeff. I just think speculation is
fair enough.
Fair.
I mean,
in this position,
right? And it's just like saying, well, you know, how do we know that on the 81st year that the polio vaccine's in your system that it doesn't turn all of your insides to goo? We don't know that because I don't think anybody's had it in their system that
That's
long.
Interesting. We could make a whole argument about what we believe right now and how we are approaching what science is telling us, for sure.
Right. Yep.
But let's not get into that.
So we don't have to get into that. But you're right. There could be room for a question. Absolutely. Especially on something that's so new that it's like, oh wow, you fixed this guy's brain by showing him videos. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's an unfortunate. There is an unfortunate story to be told there in general about all, because it is a difficult thing we have a very difficult time accepting when somebody's done wrong. I guess that's really the moral of the story.
And allowing them back into society.
Exactly. We're always going to have one eye on them. Yeah. So, okay. So he is now needing to go find a place, and he runs into a couple of police officers who are just, beating pavement. And
he's actually getting accosted by the bum that he beaten early in the movie, and the cops break it up. And who else are they but Dim and not Pete?
Georgie.
It would be nice if it was Pete. It was Georgie. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great if the guy's name was Bob.
Yeah. Well, Pete was the third invisible one now.
Pete was the Pete Best of that group.
Yes, he got kicked out of the Droogles.
Yeah, except for his name would probably be like Pete
Worst
or something. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're like, well, and now Dim's got power.
Yeah.
And they decide, let's take him for a ride.
Boy, there's a whole thread you could go down here.
Oh boy.
About the nature of the psyche of a policeman, right?
Yep. And,
what kind of people become police, and
especially in small towns.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, and how many times have we seen stories be told of, well, the rest of my family was in the mob, but they didn't want that for me, so I became a cop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
There's definitely a nod here at that.
Oh, yeah.
I think even 50, 70, whatever, 60 years ago when this book was written.
Yeah, it was written.
There's definitely a nod there.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sure.
Police.
I mean, the police force has been corrupt since there was such a thing.
Right.
I mean, the police can always be bought and used as a tool or a weapon, and and again, they're probably pawns of this dystopian government.
Yeah.
And
well, there
and
is no law and order, right?
right, and yeah, and they're of a certain moral constitution that is malleable and can be used as a blunt object.
Yep.
They're kind of the reverse of what Alex went through in a way.
Yep.
They've been conditioned to use
They've been conditioned to use their condition. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. I just stepped in just to see what condition Dim's condition was in. So they beat the shit out of him, nearly drown him, right, in another dirty water tub in the middle of nowhere, whatever the hell that was. Trough, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you want to know what ends up happening to Pete, he is in the mysterious final chapter. He's the guy that Alex sees is married, is living a good life, and thinks, maybe I should do something. Maybe I should, I think he was thinking about maybe becoming a music teacher and settling down because he sees Pete and catches up with him with his wife. Yeah. So what happened to Pete? He actually got out of all of it and became. Don't
need that in this story.
No, he just gets yeeted from the whole story altogether.
He yeet cheeks.
Yeah. Oh well, no. Well, the Georgie and Dim are beating cheeks. Technically,
I said yeet cheeks.
I know, but you're trying to mix my sayings. And don't mix in my beat cheeks with when we actually have beat cops in the
Burgess Meredith, guys.
Okay, so
yes, so where do they ultimately dump him off at?
Oh, well, he's right by home, and he's looking for home.
Yeah.
Look, it's that place.
And it seems inviting and familiar to him, and he soon realizes why.
Yeah.
Yes.
He is basically beat to where he can't do anything, right? So he ends up at this door. He basically falls into the apartment when Batman lets him in. Or Superman? Darth Vader? Sorry, I don't know. Darth Vader. He plays Darth Vader.
Adam West carries him into the room.
Yeah, sorry. I do this from time to time. he carries him in there.
There's something wrong with your Gulliver now.
Yeah, my Gulliver is messed up.
Pain in your Gulliver.
But we have the old man who's absent his wife, who we find out
with a hunky bodybuilder.
A hunky bodybuilder. That's his protection.
His nurse. Yeah, his nurse, Julian. Played by David Prowse. Just in case for those people who's like, what do you mean Darth Vader?
What do you mean Darth Vader? Yeah, David Prowse.
David Prowse,
the physical actor of Darth Vader.
Right.
Not the voice, obviously, maybe not obviously, but
yeah, and he's got big dorky glasses and teeny tiny shorts.
Oh my God, I know. You could see his butt cheeks hanging out and all of his package.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure at least one ball is hanging out one of the legs.
So I have a question here, and maybe you guys will be able to answer it because
I think I know your question, so I'm interested.
Did the old man know immediately who Alex was?
No,
I don't think so.
So when he made the call to those people to help them,
he was acting on his own.
Was his intent the same either way?
Yes.
He knew Alex. He knew Alex from the newspaper. He did not know Alex was.
They wanted to discredit the party.
Yep.
So they were
the opposing party.
Yeah, they were going to do this regardless. Okay, that makes sense to me. All right.
They were going to kill. Alex was going to be used as political leverage.
Yep.
And die from it. He is doomed.
It just became like he had to, when he found out that Alex was the person who raped his wife, he had to kind of grit his teeth.
by offering him wine and lots of it.
And lots of it, yeah. But he was like the what he wanted to do, what they're going to do is the same, but it became fucking personal.
Okay, fair.
But, and I do not think his cohorts knew that it became personal. For him.
Yes. So let me. I want to say something.
Now, in the book, I will say in the book there is no singing in the rain, like you said. he finds out from natural conversation that, hey, this is the guy who fucked my wife to death.
Well, yeah,
basically.
like Jason said, Alex introduced the actor. Like, I can't remember.
So having him singing in the rain in the tub, and have that be the trigger to recognize the voice, it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's amazing because when they show it, and I didn't want to mention this earlier, when they show him watching his wife get raped and Alex sing the song, he's conditioning him the same way he's conditioned to hate Ludwig van later, and it's
that's good. He'll hate Gene Kelly
beautiful
for the rest of his life. Yep.
Yes, it's so poetic. Maybe not beautiful. It's
poetic for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, that's so genius. It's so great because the way he reacts to the song is like, you had your eyes open. He couldn't stop staring at his wife being raped, just like Alex couldn't stop staring at these videos. It's just awesome.
Now,
awesome.
That is really good.
His wife was not technically raped to death. She died of pneumonia. But he knows that it's
the modern era, dude. It's the modern era.
She was killed by the modern era.
Right. Yeah. Which is not true. I mean, it's like Alex did something terrible to her, but did not lead her to death.
He didn't kill her directly, but it could also be implied that her health deteriorated to the point where she succumbed.
And again, it's another one of those kind of things where he killed her humanity, maybe more than anything. Much like his has been, much like the writer's has been.
Yes.
This is a triangle of poetic. It's a poetic triangle.
Yeah, of tragedy.
It's a triangle of poetic tragedy of triangles.
It's a triagedy.
Pick that in your yarbles.
It's a triagedy.
It's a triagedy, yes.
Yeah. So what Old Man has done is he's called these two people who want to discredit the government. So they plan to play Beethoven's Ninth over. Yeah,
they question him. They're asking him these questions, and here's again where Alex kind of his intelligence fails him. He doesn't see. He thinks he's smart enough to realize that he could be poisoned in this situation. He's very cautious about the wine, which is a really funny scene,
right?
Because he's going about like smelling it and looking at the
Wouldn't
color.
You like some wine?
Yeah.
when Patrick McGee yells at you to take some wine, you fucking take that wine. He may kill you in other ways, but you take the fucking wine.
But once he's convinced himself that the wine isn't poison, he is led into a false sense of security. And so he answers every question they ask.
Until he passes out in his spaghetti.
Until he passes out in the spaghetti. And what he's done is he's given them the key to driving him mad. And that's to play Beethoven's Ninth.
Yep. And so they have like 47 gigantic stage-worthy rock concert speakers playing Beethoven up through to the room above, where because he talks about it hurts him so much that he needs to snuff it out. Mm-hmm. And by snuffing it out, he means to die. It's killing him.
That's he can't harm anyone else.
Right.
Because of a violent reaction, he can only harm himself.
Right. And so, so he plunges himself out the window. But he didn't die. Obviously, he didn't die because he couldn't tell you the story.
Yeah.
That's another funny line.
This isn't the Lovely Bones or anything.
Right. So he wakes up and the doctor and the nurse are in the bed next to him.
That kills me, man. I mean, again, this other moment of comedy, but also of like this truancy of duty, right? Yeah.
Well, and his moans are playing along with her moans.
Yeah,
which is hilarious.
She doesn't even realize
it's him
moaning. She thinks it's the doctor, probably.
So she's got to come out and button herself up and everything. He wakes up. Now his parents feel sorry for him, and they come to visit him.
Well, they read it in the papers that he was wronged.
Yes, so obviously
they've turned around their whole perspective, right?
He is the victim.
The media has led them to believe a different way. Yep.
Right, and he has been the victim ever since he was accepted into the program. Now he victimized himself to get into that program, but he didn't know really what he was signing up for. To which even I think the preacher was trying to warn him against. You don't know what this is, so maybe don't try it yet. You're making your own progress, good lad. Even though he was playing him for a fool too.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it has finally come to fruition that people understand that Alex is indeed a victim of the state. And the popularity of the state has plummeted.
Right.
Yeah.
So state
The party of
official,
power. Yep.
So the state official comes in.
Patrick McGee and his cronies have done their work, and it has.
Oh, by the way,
can
we talk about our second blue-haired lady who's showing him the Rorschach comics?
She looks like Samantha Morton. It's wild. I was trying to figure out.
She looks like Carolyn with blue wig on.
Oh, a little bit.
Yeah. But if you listen to our bullets and champagne and bullets. And if you watch my show, it's my co-host of B Movie Enema. But yeah, it's like I saw that because like her reactions to everything is so wide-eyed and happy. It's like, oh my God, this is killing me. But no, it's also he has to complete these scenarios, and and he's just letting out his old personality, and he's just saying these things that are mean-spirited, and she's just so happy, and it's like, yes, that's good, now the next one.
You're well on your way to recovery.
It keeps getting worse and worse and worse, to which at one point he's talking about like what is it that they're showing him? It's something like
the watch.
Yeah, you know what you should do with that watch? You should shove it up your ass. And he's laughing, and he's like human again.
It's interesting too because it's playing your feelings for him against you at this point too. Because when he answers the questions incorrectly, you're like, "Oh no, Alex! Oh no, you're gonna get fucked again." Like,
yep.
But in reality, he's not.
But he's showing you again that he is this reprehensible person.
Yeah, throwing himself out a window cured him yet again in a different way.
Yeah.
It's like when Fred Flintstone gets bonked over the head and he becomes cool and like a mob guy, and then he gets bonked over the head again and he's just like loser Fred Flintstone again. And he gets bonked over the head and we get the picture, Jeff. No, I'm just kidding. You know what you should do with that picture? You should shove it up your ass.
But yeah, he's basically answering the questions the way as we find out next that the government wants him to.
Yeah.
Right.
They want to show that. Go ahead.
I hope to someday that I get that same line of questioning so I can answer those questions that way.
That would be hilarious.
And they also want to show that Alex is perfectly A-okay and has no bad feelings against the ruling party.
Yep. And there's two ways to do what's crazy in this scene is it's a whole commentary on people eating up the government shit because you have the government minister not force feeding, just feeding Alex bullshit.
Oh,
right?
Alex is more than happy to eat it.
Yes,
because he's going to play it against them.
He sees the angle.
Yeah. He knows the angle.
I don't think he's going to play it against him. I think he's going to take it and keep living off that hog because
I think he'll be. He's not smart enough to see the long game. He knows that this is his way to being accepted in some way again, and to be able to live the life that he is comfortable living, which is of his principal interests, right?
Right.
But eventually, the tides are going to turn again on him, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, because that government's going to be thrown out someday.
Right.
But for now, the government is going to give him what he wants.
They are giving him safe shelter. Yep.
And it's going to allow him to get away with all the bullshit he'd like to, as long as he tells their story.
Yep.
He'll probably end up, in some sort of government position, right?
He's probably going to be on the Supreme
He'll be
Court.
a higher level version of Dim and Georgie.
Right. Yeah. He'll probably be their boss. He'll probably get back at him.
Probably.
And the way that they prove it, I love. They bring in the giant speakers. And they're playing "Ode to Joy" while all the press is let in to see that he's not having violent reaction to this song that everyone knows he should. So they're like,
Well,
"No, we didn't do anything."
While he fantasizes of his future role as Caligula.
Yes,
Right. Yep.
I love it.
Because
I love it.
Caligula is gonna shove some watches up people's asses.
Christopher Walken's ass, probably.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is that he puts in somebody's ass in that movie, but he does shove something up somebody's ass in Caligula.
Oh, Caligula? Probably a grape.
No, it's like a candle or a torch or something.
No.
Sticks it right in their butt.
Yeah.
Does he light it? Light a cigarette off of it?
Well, I mean, they didn't have cigarettes, and
That's how you get the butt wax. That's how you get the butt wax out.
The butt. Yep. That's how you clean out that. That's how you clean out that butt resin.
Oh, that's amazing.
That fart wax.
That's amazing. The old school enema.
Yeah.
I should know. I have a diploma in it. Anyway.
Oh man, that's funny shit.
Yeah. So, So he is. I have to believe that the press are the people in his fantasy that's standing around applauding him, while the woman that he is having relations with is the government. And
He's giving her the old in out.
Yep. And I think
probably.
I think that's how he is picturing what he is planning to do with the government.
I just think it's his new job.
Yeah. It's just screwing the ladies while everybody's dressed like they're going to a wedding.
Yeah. You probably have a more accurate take on what that is.
Or it could just be, we got 30 more seconds. Can we get more tits in here? Yes. Yeah. We got it.
It's so weird. It seems a little, well, it doesn't even seem, it's kind of gratuitous the way he uses breasts in this movie. And Kubrick, like, I just don't see him that way. And maybe that's why, and I don't even know if we have time to talk about this, but Jason, you said this was not the most Kubrick of Kubricks. That's the
let's
kind
talk
of stuff,
about that here for a second.
That's the kind of stuff to me that makes it less Kubrick. That he is gratuitous with sex and all those things. But go ahead, Jason, if you had something to say.
Yeah, I think that the sexual aspect of Kubrick is really only concentrated in a couple movies. This one for sure. Eyes Wide Shut. Most definitely.
I would say Lolita as well.
Yes, and Lolita. I mean, he definitely has. It's there. I don't actually think that is what makes this not a Kubrick film. I think. Well,
it's a Kubrick film, but less Kubrick.
Less Kubrickian.
Yeah.
But it is. I mean, we're arguing on the margins here. Like the way every shot is perfectly framed and set is so fucking Kubrick it hurts. I think where it doesn't have some of the stylistic trademarks is stuff that came later in his career with like the Steadicam stuff, right? Because that really didn't quite hit until The Shining. The Shining to me is like the most Kubrick movie.
Yeah, I look at it as where I look at
stylistically, maybe not thematically.
Thematically,
you're probably right.
Yeah, because he's getting his digs in on a system. He's saying things about ourselves by presenting us with a guy we have no business in liking, but liking him.
It's interesting if you take a style in a thematic merging, you're probably looking at Barry Lyndon or Full Metal Jacket as being like the most Kubrickian. I would lean towards Barry Lyndon.
Yes, because he's like, fuck you, this is going to be 3.5 hours long.
And it's an anti-hero again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you marry the style and the themes, I think it's Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
But thematically, this is through and through to me the Kubrick at his most Kubrick.
It's a gooder, man. This was a hell of a good discussion. I know I've never really contemplated this movie like I have in the last 2 hours. So it will make the next watch all the more richer for it.
And I
agree.
think, we talked about real quick also, before going into this, we had talked about, Malcolm McDowell is very clear. He never wants to watch this movie again. He thinks there's nothing more to take from it than what he saw 50 years ago, and probably saw once or twice in the last, in 45 years after that or whatever. But he was asked about it because, this is the 50th anniversary. And he's like, I don't need to see it anymore. It's a wonderful movie. It's a great movie, but he's grown to the point where he doesn't want to watch this anymore. And
I wonder too how much sort of pain there is in watching it, from the standpoint that he looked at Stanley Kubrick as a father figure during the making of this movie. And this is a common thing that can happen with a director and actor relationship, almost not unlike maybe a therapist in their patient, right? And
he never uses them again, right?
Well, he never uses them again, and he really didn't talk to him much afterwards. Stanley kind of just, I wouldn't say he went made a conscious choice to cut him out of his life, but he wasn't as important to him as Malcolm McDowell thought he was.
That seems very Kubrick to me.
Yes.
Like he's ultra focused while he needs you. And then when he doesn't anymore, he's moved on.
Well, yeah.
I don't want to say the man is cold.
When you're in his light, when you're in his aura, you get probably caught up. You either hate him or you love him, I would guess. Yeah.
My suspicion
you can't do 500 takes for a man and not love him. And
the woman
hate him.
The woman who was raped by Billy Boy's Droogs absolutely fucking hates Stanley Kubrick because she had to do that scene stark naked 100 times.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and Shelley Duvall has no kind words for Kubrick either, or no fond memories of working with him. I mean, like, that works well for somebody like Jack Nicholson, who's a crazy person too, and I think it works well for the guy he did use multiple times, which was Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers
was his own kind of crazy too.
Yes, he was. He was a very odd fellow.
And I think that there were very few people that Peter Sellers respected as an authority figure, and Stanley Kubrick was one of them.
Yeah.
Right. God, I love that movie too, Dr. Strangelove. That's way up
that's
there.
a hell of a good one.
Yep. And maybe someday, right? I mean, we've still got another 10 Kubrick movies that we could probably talk about.
Yeah.
So
another real quick mention. I mean, the music is so integral to this.
Yeah.
To this movie. I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Wendy Carlos. Really kind of a trailblazer in electronic experimental music. Her Switched on Bach was kind of a landmark for electronic music, using the Moog synthesizer to kind of transpose classical music and make it.
Co-created the Moog, didn't she?
I believe she may have been involved. Yes.
Yeah.
She also some of the music in Clockwork Orange was the very first use of the vocoder. So she kind of pioneered.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Really fascinating person, Wendy Carlos. Born Walter Carlos. She was a trans woman. Had gender reassignment surgery in the early 70s. And
wow, that's really early.
Yep. She's very much a trans pioneer. Yeah.
Clockwork Orange, The Shining, and Tron are her most recognizable soundtracks. Maybe. Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, she also did some music for The Shining, but Kubrick being Kubrick, even in both cases, he didn't use her full score for either movie. There was a lot of music that she made for Clockwork Orange that she released on her own the same year the soundtrack came out, basically the same year the movie came out. That is all of the outtakes, all the stuff that she composed, much of which Kubrick didn't use because he spliced in whatever he felt fit the scene. But he did use quite a bit of her work too.
Yeah, she had her gender reassignment surgery in May of 1972.
Yeah, that's
So about
crazy,
6
really.
months after this movie came out.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is top tier stuff, guys. This top shelf business.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably wouldn't be talking about it 50 years later if it weren't. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Well, I mean, I figure
we'll talk about anything. Never mind.
Yeah, we'll talk about
True.
anything. Yeah, I mean, not that
We did
long
an episode
ago.
on champagne and bullets this year, guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, not that long ago, we had Can't Hardly Wait, and now 5 weeks later, it's
Yeah.
like, Clockwork Orange.
We go where
our hearts
we
lead.
go where we want. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, and to be honest with you, almost every Kubrick movie is going to be top tier business.
It's very true.
Yeah. So, So, hey, what do we got next? Oh, that's me. Hang on a second. I've got the little calendar here. This Friday. No, let's not do that. This Monday, for Monster Mondays, I have the 2019 version of Rabid. I'm in my month of remakes of movies that I've covered before on Monster Mondays. So, so we got Rabid. That is Monster Mondays number 149.
Wow.
Can you guess what number 150 is?
King Kong.
It is. Yes, it's
King
Peter
Kong.
Jackson's King Kong.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, so next Wednesday. Oh, we got a good one next Wednesday. I can't wait.
What's next Wednesday? Is it with Indiana?
It sure is. It's Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, as it's now
I don't know why,
Yes.
but I feel like we've done this episode. It's so weird to me. Like, how have we not done Raiders?
known. Right? This is
It's
one
crazy.
of those. This is one of those movies that made us and our whole
Yeah.
generation, and maybe the generation after us. Yeah, it's it is one. It's one of those big time movies.
Yep.
So that is next Wednesday. That is one of the few movies that I legitimately and literally do not need to watch to talk about. I have watched it, but I don't need to. If we said, "Hey, what do we need? We need something to fill in." Yeah, let's just talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'd be like, "I'm there."
Should we save it then, just in case?
No, I want to talk about it.
I wanted to get
We'll
your
talk about
reaction
it.
on that.
I wanted to talk about it. This Friday on my website, bmovieenema.com, I have The Invisible Maniac. It's a sort of boner comedy, but not. It's really kind of more of a. Imagine if maybe like, I don't know, Clockwork Orange was a little bit of a boner comedy.
It is a bit of a boner comedy for a minute.
Yeah, that's not a bad. That's not a good comparison. Invisible Maniac is just a 1990 version of The Invisible Man, except for just read the article. That's on Friday. This Saturday on B Movie Enema, the series, season 2, episode 9, She Freak, which is a shitty remake of Freaks.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
It's a good episode. It's not a great movie, but I think I got some good stuff for everybody to learn about in that episode.
Sweet.
Nice.
So guys, we did it.
We did it.
Clockwork
We did it.
Orange, fantastic. Next week, another anniversary with Raiders of the Lost Ark. So
Beautiful.
I think we can now bring this in for a landing here, and I will say that I have been Jeff Arbuckle, and I do wish you Viddy well.
I'm watching Jeff with my glazies as he said that, and I've been Chuck Moore.
And you have been viddying with your ears, film seizure.
But we don't know who that guy is.
but my name is Jason.